Tough week for the grain markets. The way that the sellers had control of the markets, it's a good thing it was only 4 days long. Corn and soybean futures were lower and wheat was mixed today after a volatile session. Cattle complex was lower again, but the hog market did find a way to close higher at the end of a go-nowhere week.
Live from the waning moments of May via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This afternoon we chat with Betty Berning from HighGround Dairy. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson, and now the host of AgriTalk, Jeff Flory.
You just kind of reminded me, to all the wheat growers out there and all the wheat traders, we need to wish you a happy new marketing year eve.
Huzzah! Woohoo!
Yeah. Woohoo! Whee! Yeah, today's the end. Today's the end of the marketing year. Welcome to AgriTalk. I'm Chip, that's Davis, and that's the kind of market nonsense that I think about almost every day.
It feels like actual information, though, Chip. I mean, trust me, I know nonsense, and I don't think that's nonsense.
You think that was important?
I think it might have been, yeah.
Good. Tough week for the grains. Corn, beans, wheat, all under pressure. Yeah, the pressure on the wheat market, we can't forget that it was stronger at the start of the shortened week. So the last couple of days may have made it feel a little bit worse than what it really was. Mm-hmm. But soybean meal really took it on the chin this week. And then the cattle complex was just kind of it feels like it's rolling over. We talked about it with Oliver yesterday, and it just kind of feels like, okay, cash market made a new all-time high last week. Maybe that's good enough. You roll over, you start to bring some selling, some put buying into the live cattle trade, and all of a sudden it just doesn't look as sparkly as it did a week ago right now. So just a bit of a transition week for some of the livestock trade here too, I think.
Okay. You're saying the bloom is off the rose?
There you go. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
We're closing the week with that sentiment, huh?
Did you open up a book of translation of some sort?
No, I had pork again. Sorry.
Attaboy. That's going to benefit us both.
I'm just trying to make it through. Just trying to survive.
I know it will. We've got a new guest analyst on the show today. We're going to be talking about all things dairy.
Yeah.
Betty Berning from HighGround Dairy. I believe she has, I'm admitting it right now when I say I believe she has. I haven't listened to it much. I checked out a couple of clips from a podcast called Let's Chat Dairy. And Betty has been on a couple of those. So we'll learn more about Let's Chat Dairy from HighGround Dairy as well.
Cool.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
I've got July soft red winter wheat futures opening lower, closing just below the opening range while posting an inside trading day. The market did find support at 675 for a second consecutive session. July hard red futures opened fractionally lower and closed back at the opening range after testing support at yesterday's low. Session highs in winter wheat futures were posted after comments from the Russian Deputy Prime Minister that frost events earlier this month destroyed production on about 2.5 million acres. Export sales of wheat in the weekend of May 23 featured net cancellations of nearly 61,000 of old crop wheat as the 2023 and 24 marketing year comes to an end. New crop wheat sales of almost 382,000 metric tons were at the high end of trade expectations. July hard red winter wheat futures today 3/4 of 1 cent lower at 708. And 3/4 looks like. July SOW wheat down 2.5 to 678.5. July spring wheat closed at 739 3/4, down 2 1/4 cents, Chip.
All right. On the week, July SRW wheat futures down 18 3/4. July hard red futures down 12.5, and July spring wheat futures down 13 cents. Like I said, earlier in the week, there was some buying in the wheat market that helped it out, but just kind of faded the past couple of days. Now, today was kind of go nowhere, but nonetheless, some pressure earlier in the week.
Well, corn futures closed lower each day this week and completed a downside reversal on the weekly chart. Export sales in the weekend of May 23 totaled at just over 810,000 metric tons, and that was in line with trade expectations. Corn planting progress is being made in some areas of the central and eastern corn belt today, but rains are falling in the western belt, and more rain is expected over the next 48 hours. Planting delays are serious for individual producers, but not much of a factor for the overall corn market at this time. July corn futures 2.5 cents lower at 4.46 1/4. September corn down 3 3/4 cents to 4.54. December corn futures closed at 4.67. That's down 4 cents on the day.
Last 10% of the corn crop is always the toughest to get planted. And that, I think, is going to be a sentiment next week. And as the market is trying to figure out just exactly how much risk needs to be included in the market to reflect production risk because of planting delays. So the focus will be on the weather again next week. I don't think there's much question about that. July corn on the week down 18.5 cents. December corn down 21 1/4.
Oof. Well, export sales of soybeans totaled more than 329,000 metric tons. That was in line with trade expectations. For the first time this week, front-month bean meal futures provided support for bean prices, but bean meal also saw a downside reversal on the weekly price chart. Meal export sales in the week ended May 23 of almost 266,000 metric tons were in line with trade expectations, but the market suffered from reports that China is exporting meal due to decreased demand from its hog industry. July bean oil respected support at yesterday's low and resistance at last week's high, closed near mid-range for the week. Bean oil exports just over 10,000 metric tons, topped trade expectations. July beans 4 3/4 lower at 12.05. Excuse me. August beans down 4.5 cents, 12.03 1/2. November beans closed at 11.84 1/2, down 5.5 cents.
All right, let's start with soybeans in the soy complex. July soybeans on the week down 43 cents. November beans on the week down 35 cents. Not very pretty. Bean oil, July bean oil on the week was up 57 points. Now, it's not a huge gain, but it was still higher, and it's because of spread unwinding, because July soybean meal on the week down $21.80 a ton. That's 5.6%.
Well, cotton export sales weekend at May 23 totaled at 222,600 running bales. That was up 25,000 from the 4-week average, but that could not stop cotton futures from closing near the low of the week. July cotton today 161 points lower, 76.15, Chip.
July cotton on the week down 437 points. Ugly.
Oof. Cattle complex was lower today on ideas the cash market will back off from last week's all-time high, and on reports that China is putting up additional roadblocks to U.S. beef imports. June fat cattle were a buck lower, 181.55. October down 132.5 to 180.80. August feeders posted a downside reversal on the weekly chart, and today 267.5 lower at 256.40. Let's hit the snout side quickly. Pork exports in the week were huge, 44,400 metric tons. That's a 69% gain on the 4-week average. Still, volatility drained out of the lean hog market. June hogs today 37.5 higher, 94.35. Chip.
All right, thank you very much, Davis. June live cattle on the week down $2.15. August feeder cattle down $3.82 1/2 cents. And June lean hog futures gained 7.5 whole cents on the week. Big move for the hogs. We're talking dairy. We've got Betty Berning next on AgriTalk.
On your favorite radio station or your preferred digital device, AgriTalk is live every weekday.
Do you include this in your mix there, in your sets, Davis?
I do not. No, not this one particularly. You know, if you'd like to, you can come on down to a show, pick up one of the request cards, right?
Yeah.
You write down "Owner of a Lonely Heart."
Okay.
You wrap the card in a $100 bill and drop it in the fishbowl. You move right to the front of the line that way. Then I sing your song with no guarantees that I will be able to pull it off well or even effectively.
Right. But you
I'll
will
try.
sing it.
Absolutely. That's what I'm there for. Let's party.
Let's party, man.
The worst one. that I had to do, that I had requested, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. It was, well, I've got a brand new pair of roller skates. You got a
brand new key.
I about had to beat myself up after singing that, but give the people what they want. That's the secret.
Listen, you got to get in the right state of mind if you're going to be doing that brand new pair of roller skates.
Yeah,
hey,
it helps.
You had to picture yourself like in a tie-dye with a gold chain, right?
Well, and I will say there was Jameson close at hand. I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, good. That would be like Johnny Fever and his bottle of vodka.
There you go.
Yes.
Just in case.
Love it. All right, let's talk some dairy. We've got Betty Berning from HighGround Dairy. First time on AgriTalk. Betty, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing real good today. Thank you.
Good. So tell me about yourself. What got you interested in the dairy markets?
Well, I started like many people in the dairy industry. I grew up on a dairy farm in central Minnesota. My brother still has a milking herd. He milks about 100 cows. He has robots. He does not do much milking these days. The robots do the work. But grew up on a dairy farm and studied agricultural business at the University of Minnesota. And then since then, I've really worked across the agricultural supply chain, mostly in dairy. I was told early in my career, do not get into the white crops, meaning dairy, sugar, and cotton. You can't escape. And yes, that is true. I've not been able to escape dairy. So I've worked as a lender. That was early on in my career. I researched methane digesters at one point for my graduate work, and then was a dairy buyer and commodity analyst with a Fortune 500 company in the Minneapolis area. Then I worked for Extension. I worked for myself. And now I'm at HighGround. So yeah, really broad.
Where did you spend time
background.
in Extension, Betty?
I was with University of Minnesota Extension and on their farm business management team. So taught farmers in greater Minnesota about transition planning, financial management, human resources. My friend Pauline and I launched a Women in Agriculture network. So, and I also got to make videos on the now defunct MPP dairy program.
The now defunct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I get you.
That was a while ago.
That is, that's quite the resume that you put together. The methane digesters, here they come back around again, right?
Here they come back around again. Yes. And it's definitely a different iteration this time. So my research, that was about 15 years ago. I'm 26, so I was 11, just to clarify. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. But that was looking more at if I make electricity, and we looked specifically in Pennsylvania. And at that time, a 500 cow dairy was a really large operation. So we looked at, I think 500 cows was the largest operation that we analyzed. And what we really found was kind of what we know now. You need a really big farm and favorable policy. And at that time, just looking at the quantitative data, it didn't make a lot of sense unless you were really large and had those policies. Now farms have gotten bigger, right? And there have been more policies, and folks have figured out, hey, internal combustion engines really aren't that efficient. We lose a lot trying to make electricity with these digesters. What if we just scrub the gas and sell it back, link into the natural gas line? So they've definitely become a more profitable proposition in the last 5 or 10 years. But it's different than what I looked at. And it's kind of exciting too, to see like, okay, so the technology, the way that it was, didn't necessarily quite pencil, but we worked on it, right? We innovated.
Right.
And now people have them. Like, it's insane how quickly it's grown, and just all the dollars that have been put to it in the industry that's sprung up around it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it went from let's provide power for our own operation with this methane digester to let's bring some revenue in using the methane digester. Is that correct?
Yes, that is right. That early on, we were looking at, there was a farm here in Minnesota. I did my grad research out in Pennsylvania, but there was a farm here in Minnesota, and there's pretty favorable laws. So he was able to sell power back to the grid, had a really sweetheart of a deal, and that kind of sparked interest in, well, how else could this work, or where else could this work as well. But you're spot on there that farms used the electricity themselves and then were able to sell it back. A big victory for them was around net metering laws. I learned all sorts of fun things.
Yeah.
I know so much more about manure than any normal person should. Yeah.
Good. You and Davis ought to get along just fine.
No, I live with men. I have a husband and 3 boys. I'm good. I feel like my whole life has prepared me for this.
I'm the oldest of 3 boys. Maybe my whole life has prepared me for this.
Oh, perhaps.
I think we got something. Chip, go ahead and take off early today. We'll finish up.
Yeah, right.
Oh, my goodness.
All right.
We can talk basketball, football. What do you want to do?
Whatever. I'm good.
You're already over his head, Betty. You're already over his head. Okay. Let's tell me about Let's Chat Dairy, the podcast.
Yes, every week, HighGround Dairy has a Friday market recap podcast. Let's Chat Dairy. Typically, it's my colleagues Alyssa Badger and Kara Murphy who are hosting the podcast and just recapping what's gone on in CME spot markets, any major USDA reports, and then we also cover international markets. So looking at what EU prices have done, if there was a global dairy trade event, and if any new production data has come out from overseas. So this week I got to be on, someone was out of town, so I got promoted and got to talk a little bit about dairy then. Yes.
All right. So
it's free, listen in.
Oh, yeah. There you go. So as you were putting a recap on the dairy markets for this week, what did you focus on?
Cheese and butter, they really were the big movers this week. We saw that big run up in cheese prices in mid-May, and now things have backed off a little bit. This certainly feels like more of a correction than a fundamental shift in the markets as we look at international prices as well. Those have been holding firm and increasing too. So it seems like demand for cheese is decent. We're just seeing a bit of a step back. And then we talked about butter markets. I learned a new word this week, cryptid. Is that what it's called? Like cryptic, but different. It means like a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch would be considered this. A cryptid. There it is.
There you go, a cryptid.
But they said that is what the butter market is right now. Some sort of mythological creature, because it just seems to be defying all the odds. I'm an economist by training, and so fundamentally seeing $3 per pound plus butter in springtime makes absolutely no sense, particularly when stocks are quite strong and production's been good. Cream's been relatively cheap, at least in my area. And, we've seen like soft ice cream demand as well. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But the butter market does what the butter market wants. Took a big step back on Tuesday on the heels of last Friday's cold storage report. So the market fell 12 cents on Tuesday and then gave up about 3 on Wednesday, settling under $3 per pound. The rest of the week, though, off to the races again. We ended the week at 309 on butter. So back pretty close back to the all-time spring high that we saw. I think that was just last week, 312 and a quarter. So, what's going on might be the question. Butter's an interesting beast. There's not a ton of sellers, so sometimes that can create some interesting dynamics. And then there's different specs too within the butter space. So something may be in demand that's just not, there may not be a lot of it being made right now.
Well, I've seen it anecdotally, and I think we're seeing it backed up by the numbers. People are moving away from margarine and substitutes and back to butter, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, retail demand here stateside has been quite robust, too. That's definitely worth mentioning. That has helped, and that's been the big run up. And then the other thing, too, that we're seeing is now that people have started to cook with butter again, they want to continue, even if it is pricey. So that has just continued to, fuel the fire, keeping prices high, too.
Holy smokes, the music surprised me. That flew by. Wow, we are talking dairy. We've talked a little bit about the cheese market. We've talked a little bit about the butter market. Betty, you mentioned that production has been good. I want to get back, and when we come back, let's talk about what the production numbers are looking like and how that's influencing milk prices on a day-to-day. We're talking with Betty Berning, HighGround Dairy, here on AgriTalk.
Let's go to the markets page at profarmer.com and check today's closes, where July HRW wheat futures were 3/4 of 1 cent lower at 7.08 3/4. July SRW wheat down 2.5 cents to 6.78 1/2. July corn futures 2.5 cents lower on the day at 4.46 1/4. December corn futures closed at 4.67, down 4 cents on the day. July soybean futures 4.75 lower, 12.05. Novi beans closed at 11.84 1/2. That's down 5.5 cents. July cotton today 161 points lower, 76.15. On your livestock's June fat cattle were $1 lower at 181.55. August feeders $2.67 1/2 lower at 256.40. And on the snout side, June lean hog futures today 37 1/2 cents higher at 94.35. Get more, visit tryprofarmer.com. Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. When news breaks, the newsmakers talk about it on AgriTalk with Chip Flory.
You're welcome.
Did you say me? You said me? Huh?
You're welcome.
Okay.
Called the Van Halen hit.
Nice work. Nice work. Need a little Van Halen on a Friday afternoon.
Oh, we need a lot of Van Halen on a Friday.
Preach.
Why wouldn't we?
Preach.
Love it. All right, we are in the middle of a conversation with Betty Berning from HighGround Dairy. I want to get right back into it here. Betty, tell me a little bit more about the trend in cheese. You said that it's backed off some from the recent highs. What is the seasonal on cheese prices as we're going into the summer months?
Yeah, right now I would anticipate that prices will remain supportive through the summer months. Cheese inventories, like looking at last Friday's cold storage report, they weren't really much to write home about. They've been really flat the last few Aprils. And then you see it with grilling season, you see demand typically pick up for cheddar cheese as people, they want their cheeseburgers once summer hits. So I certainly, while we have seen a step back in prices, I would anticipate that things will start to firm up here in the not so distant future on the, just more sluggish production numbers and flattish inventory numbers. That's a lot of issues.
It's okay. Sometimes we need a lot of issues in trying to describe what's going on here. What about on the export side of things, Betty? I mean, is this the time of year where our exports on cheese start to pick up?
Well, exports on cheese have been really strong in 2024, and that was because prices were so doggone low earlier in the year. So what we saw in March's data, and we'll get April's data next week, what we saw in March's data, though, was record high cheese exports from the U.S. And when we get that data, those are from sales that were probably booked, say, 2, 3, 4 months prior. Okay. So March's sales would have been booked, late December, early January, when cheese markets were just kind of languishing and heading even lower. So I would anticipate, just based on what cheese markets were doing through the middle of March, that we're going to continue to see some good export numbers for at least the next couple months worth of data. And then once the, April sales start to hit, the April and May sales start to hit the books, we'll see a drawdown in cheese exports because cheese was so much more expensive in April and May. Yeah. And it's really been fresh and grated cheese that have seen just huge growth. That's most likely going to be primarily mozzarella as well, which makes sense. Yeah, people eat pizza elsewhere. They want, the stretch and the melt of mozzarella in different foods.
Yeah. All right. Talk to me about production. You said in the last segment that it's been good. How do we quantify good?
But butter production has been decent because manufacturers are making money making butter. Milk production, though, is a little bit of a different story. So we've been down for 10 consecutive months on milk production. I do
Okay,
have
I
April
got you.
data. Yeah, that's all right. All good. I do have April production data that came out 2 weeks ago. Now, overall in the US, totals were down almost 0.5%, down 0.4% from the prior year. Like I said, 10th month in a row. That 0.4%, though, was the smallest year over year loss since the end of 2023. So we're starting to see things come back up and get closer to parity. The smaller production numbers have primarily been driven by a smaller herd size. So farmers culled cows real heavy last year. Beef prices have been phenomenal, and it was a way to manage margins in a time of low milk prices. So we're paying for that now. Also, heifer inventories are super tight. So key
Yeah.
takeaways. That's what I always say. What are the key takeaways?
Yeah.
Milk production down for 10 months, right? Probably will persist through first half of 2024, and it's driven mostly by just the smaller U.S. herd size. We had some states that turned out really great milk per cow numbers. Where I'm in Minnesota, so Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, really the cows were just cranking here and saw big milk per cow gains in April. Elsewhere, though, places where HPAI highly pathogenic avian influenza has impacted herds. Places like Texas and Kansas, we actually saw milk per cow fall
Okay.
from March to April, and that's really atypical. What we tend to see here in the U.S. in the springtime is that milk per cow is going to grow as we enter into flush. So to see it drop from March to April during a time in which milk production is typically increasing is really atypical. So kind
Yeah.
of some mixed results there in the data set.
Yeah. So the H5N1 is having an impact. I was thinking it was probably on so few cows that it might not have much of an impact, but you're really kind of looking at it's not just count the cows, it's count the number of herds that are infected. Is that right?
Yeah, I think there's something to that. And the main symptom of it is a decrease in milk production. So, in a place like Texas, that was the first place that was impacted by the disease. You see that milk per cow it's down. In
Yeah.
April, I think it was down 55 pounds per cow, which is pretty significant. Um, I don't know what else that would be
Right.
besides this disease that's been impacting herds there. And then we saw a similar phenomenon in Kansas as well, another place where they've had HPAI. And so while nobody's come out and directly said, this is why milk per cow is down in these places, I think it's
Right.
a pretty safe conclusion to draw. So
Yeah.
it
Okay.
is having an impact, maybe not a huge one right now, because there's places where feed is really good. There's been, good genetics and the cows are doing really well. But then there's some places where obviously there's some hiccups.
Yep. You mentioned the tight numbers of replacement heifers.
Hmm.
Uh, Beef on dairy has got to be part of the reason there. It feels like the industry has kind of gotten themselves into a supply squeeze with these replacement heifers, hasn't it?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it takes 2 years for a calf to, or a heifer rather, to grow up to become a cow. So this is not a problem that's going to be solved overnight. But yeah, there's limited numbers of heifers available, and the ones that are available are pretty pricey. So
Yeah.
what we've been noticing since milk prices have started to increase again is that slaughter rates have greatly slowed. So we're seeing what that means is producers are really holding on to the cows that they do have in the herd. They're not wanting to go out and purchase a heifer at a super high price, right? It just doesn't pencil. And with better milk prices, they want to, optimize, maximize those milking assets. So they're
Yeah.
hanging on to cows. The last 2 weeks of slaughter data, week 19 and week 20, it's been the lowest week 19 and lowest week 20 since 2008, which That's 16 years ago, if my math is right.
Wow.
That's pretty unbelievable. Yeah, that is definitely a wow. So it's going to take some time for this to work itself out. Beef on dairy has been so profitable, though.
Yeah.
And, at a certain point, things will have to shift, right? Because we're going to need heifers to replace cows. I think we're starting to finally get there. But when, you get several $100s for a beef bull calf, that's
Yep.
pretty easy money. And you don't got to put a lot
Yep.
into that calf now, do you?
Yep. That's right. That's right. A lot of, I mean, it's a brand new revenue stream for a lot of dairies out there. How is profitability in the dairy industry right now? I'm looking at $20 milk, $20 to $21 milk in the July and out contracts, but $20 milk isn't what it used to be, is it?
It is not. And thank you for saying that. I got a question like this yesterday, and someone's like, so farmers are making lots of money now. And I was like, well, I mean, I think some of them are doing all right. And the beef on dairy certainly adds to their bottom line. Break even is probably around, say, $19 right now. And that's just being like super average here. So yeah, it's definitely a decent price. We've seen, when we look at income over feed costs, we've seen that that answer increase to those margins, but it's not what it once was. And as we know, last year was a tougher year for dairy farmers. So I've had a few conversations with bankers this week. Farmers are taking any extra money they have right now, dairy farmers in particular, and they're paying down debt, and they're trying to get their working capital back in good order again, and just take off some of the leveraging that they've had to do over the last, year, 2, 3 years for some of them.
Okay. All right. Give me your general attitude toward risk management in the milk market right now, or prices. Do producers need to be selling strength? What's your attitude?
Oh, that's great. Well, now is a very good time to be taking on DRP, dairy revenue protection.
Okay.
And then you can do another strategy alongside that, whether that's, futures or options, and keep yourself open to the upside if you think milk prices are headed higher. That way you don't miss out on any of that margin. The team at HighGround we sell both the dairy revenue protection insurance, and then there's also the opportunity to go out and, take on an options or a future strategy. But now is, if you can lock in some margins right now and you haven't been able to in some time, it sure seems like that would be a good strategy. So, who knows what crop prices will do? You never know what summer weather's going to do. It seems like right now things will stay affordable, but why not get rid of that headache, right? And not have something to worry about. That's my strategy anyway.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Betty, I hope you had fun doing this, because I'd sure like to have you back on sometime.
Oh, next time can we talk about football or no, dairy?
Yes,
Too early. It's
can.
too early.
It's not. It's never too early to start talking about football. We can definitely do that.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. What I probably have to get a Vikings fan on here to continue the conversation with you, though. Otherwise, I'm not sure how. We can get Greg Peterson on here. He loves the Vikings.
Perfect.
Love it.
Okay.
Thank you, Betty.
You knew it. I am a Vikings fan. Thank you. It was fun.
All right.
I'd be happy to be back. Take care.
Excellent. Betty Berning, HighGround Dairy. Davis and I will be right back.
I don't know what you're thinking. So call us at 855-4TALK-AG and tell us what's on your mind. Welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. Ow! Your pal Davis Michelson here. So excited to be with you. Thanks for spending some time with us this afternoon. By us, I mean myself and my friend Chip Flory.
Hey, buddy.
Big Apple Joe's around as well.
Yep.
Betty Berning from HighGround Dairy.
Yeah, good one.
Where did she come from? She was incredible. That was really fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And talked about factors in the market, and most people do. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but talked about the factors that it's obvious that it matters to the day-to-day price movement in milk.
Yep.
what's the price of cheese? What's the price of butter? What's the export look like? What's the demand picture? What is our production numbers? Yeah, no, it was good. I learned. I feel like I know a whole lot more about what's going on in this milk market after that conversation. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and you talked some specific marketing strategies and some ideas there, but she did kind of have one sort of marketing philosophy that I really think it really resonates with me. Eliminate headaches. Mm-hmm. That's her marketing strategy.
I like it. Don't you?
I love that. Yeah. That's going to be my new motto. Eliminate headaches.
Eliminate headaches.
Yeah.
The bottom line on the eliminate headaches marketing philosophy is if you've got some positive revenue that you can lock in, why are you not locking some in?
Yeah.
Do something on that.
Yep.
And that just every time you do that, you're taking risk out of the market. You're taking, the price of milk is something that as an individual producer, you don't have a whole lot of control over. Mm-hmm. What you do have control over is if you're going to take the price that's offered when it's profitable or not. Mm-hmm. So headache reduction plans.
I like that. Yeah. HRP. A few weeks ago, geez, I don't even know how long ago it was. I would warrant that you and Joe probably don't even have any idea. It's kind of starting to run together just a little bit. But you had great coverage from the Sustainability Ranch Tour down in Texas.
Yeah.
And one of your guests down there was talking about conservation, and his comment, I love this, conservation without compensation is just conversation.
Right. Jimmy Emmons.
That
Jimmy
rang,
Emmons
Jim
Trust and Food.
Jimmy Emmons, shout out. Hello, Jim. It was like a bong going off in my head when she was talking about the digesters. Sure, that's great if we can make electricity or whatever, but I can produce gases that I can sell back.
Yeah, it's revenue.
Now we've got conservation, we've got compensation.
Yep. So it's more than a conversation.
That's exactly right. Yep.
It's really good. That was an added benefit to. I had no idea that we were going to have that conversation with Betty when she got on.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting.
She was good on that. That's pretty cool. Okay, here we go. Let's do this. Sasquatch. Okay. Chupacabra. Some sort of rare cheetah tortoise hybrid, the chortus, I call it.
Okay.
And butter. These are all cryptids, according to Betty Berning. Butter does what it wants to. Butter does its own thing. And I don't know. What was interesting to me there was she mentioned people moving away from margarine to real butter. And I know you're a butter eater.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What's behind that, do you reckon?
Health.
Yeah?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think so.
Well, I mean for you, but I mean more broadly, why is the consumer reaching for real butter? Is it health?
Health. Yeah. I think health got it started. I think home cooking and let's give this butter a try instead of whatever.
Yeah.
And use real butter, and then they find out that A, it tastes better, B, it works better, and if you look into it a little bit, it's healthier for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. Another item, dairy farmers working to pay down debt. That's a solid idea. If you're in that position, good on you. I feel like, Chip, and you can probably speak to this too. I mean, you got to take care of that. You got to take care of as much debt as possible, especially in an uncertain interest rate environment. I mean, tight margins, yada yada.
There's more than one way to prepare for a rainy day.
There you go. Yep.
One way to do that is to build up a nest egg and something that is going to be there when you need it. Another way is to reduce your overall costs, which when we're looking at interest rates at levels that they're at right now, debt is a significant cost. So the faster you can pay that principal down, the faster you can get rid of those interest payments, and the faster that you're preparing for a rainy day.
Yep.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Little talk about herd rebuilding. Kind of just a nod at, it's expensive. to get new stock in right now, and it takes a long freaking time to make a cattle herd.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And with the change in strategy that is happening with in the dairy industry to produce more beef, beef-like calves, with the beef genetics on those cows, it has created some challenges on the replacement heifers. And I don't think we're to the end of those challenges yet and figuring out exactly how it's going to work. I got to admit, when you said Sasquatch, I thought you were going to have something to report on Nick Ehler's planning progress or something like that.
No.
No?
The other Sasquatch. The real Sasquatch.
I gotcha. National Weather Service 6 to 10 day outlook for June 6th through the 10th. Below normal temperatures expected over the entire Corn Belt. You heard me.
Mm-hmm.
July 6th through the 10th, below normal temperatures expected over the entire Corn Belt. Below normal precipitation expected over North Dakota, South Dakota, northern Nebraska, all of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. You've got near normal precip expected outside of that area, with above normal precipitation expected in the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma, and southwest Kansas area. Man, I hope you had a good week this week. It was a short week with Memorial Day. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday morning. Next week is Pork Week. It's a week we look forward to every year. Have a great weekend, everybody.